Just to introduce myself briefly, I'm Joanne. I'll be moderating and hosting today. Our speaker for today is Crispo. So let me turn off my camera so that you can get bandwidth. So Crispo will be speaking to us deeply about index and match, and just taking a deeper dive on index and match and how we can use that in our daily data analysis. I know most of us here have interacted with Crispo through LinkedIn or by seeing the post that he has. Yes, you can see Crispo now. So Crispo is a Excel data analyst. He's also a trainer, an Excel trainer. He is a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and Microsoft MVP. He's a Microsoft Certified Trainer, MCT. There are so many things that I can say about Crispo. I think I'm going to take a lot of time if I start describing the credentials and the expertise that Crispo has. But I'll leave the floor to him to share some of the knowledge that he has with us, to share some of the expertise that he has with us. And if you have just a few housekeeping rules, if you have any question, as we proceed, you can lift your hand up so that the trainer can see and respond. And at the end of the session, we'll have a few minutes for question and answer. Or during the session, you can also type in your question in the chat so that Crispo can see and you can be able to respond. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in, and welcome to the class. Crispo.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you for the introduction. We have a lot to cover today, so I'll go straight to the presentation. So the first concept that we are going to look at is the lookup value. So what is a lookup value? A lookup value is just a value that you want to find in a data set. It is typically unique. It's typically a unique identifier, but sometimes if there is no unique, you can be able to use a combination of values, and it can be a single value, a combination of value, or partial value. Using an analogy, assuming you want to buy my book, and all you have is the book title. So you want to go and find how much it costs. So what the book title is the lookup value, and where you're going to look it up, maybe in a library or in a bookshop, that's the data set. And using our example here is, if you want to find, we want to find how much we sold on 14th, and so 14th of January 2010 is our lookup value, and you can come to this data set and check. We see it's actually 18,100. You can use a lookup value, a lookup function. Or what if you want to find how much Dan bought on 11th? You see, we can't use Dan because Dan is repeated. Dan is not unique, repeat customers. But when you combine Dan and 11, then it becomes a unique lookup value. And then the last example is, what if you have just a partial match? You want to know how much did we sell in terms of milk. And you can see we have different types of milk products. So you can use milk to look at partially all the milk products or the first milk product we sold. So that's a partial value. So the second concept that we need to understand is the lookup array. A lookup array is nothing more but a range of data that Excel will search through to find a match for your lookup value. So it can be a single column or row, or it can be a table. A table is anything that is at least two rows or columns. So using the analogy of you buying a book or finding something about a book, so you have now the title. So when you go to look for this book in a bookshop, you need to know in which row is it placed, or in which section is it placed. Is it in the fiction and fiction, science, or technology? So like you can go and try to buy an Excel book in a kind of in a fiction section. So where are you looking up that value that you have? In our example above, we'll see that for sales date, you can only come and look it up at the sales date column. Trying to look for the date in the customers column will not give you the correct, it will not even return anything because dates should be checked in the dates column, customers should be checked in the customers column. If it is a product, then you should go and check it up where all the products are stored. So that's what it means to for a lookup array. It's just a section or a range of data where Excel will go through to find a match for your lookup value. So the third concept that you need to understand is what is called a return array. Now that you have your lookup value and you have gone through your data set and you have found it in your data set, what do you want to return? Yeah, so it's just a range of cells that contains data to be retrieved after the lookup value if the lookup value is found in your lookup array. Using our library and the book analogy, now that you have found the book that you are looking for, you had a title and then you went to the book section, non-fiction or science and technology, and you have found the book. What do you want to return? What was the goal for you finding that value? So do you want to return the price? Do you want to return the published date? So this again, like the lookup array, it consists of a single column or row or a table, which again is at least two rows or columns. And by default, if you have duplicates, for example, if I had published more than one book and you wanted to go into a bookshop and find Crispo, it will return for you the first true value that it finds. Yeah, so by default, most of the lookup functions return the first true value. So in our case, in our examples that we are looking at is when I go and I find 14th of January in my data set, what do I want to return? Do I want to return the region? Do I want to return the products? Do I want to return who we sold to on that day? For the product or for Dan, what do you want to return? So that's the return array. It's the amount that you want to retrieve when the lookup value is found in the lookup array. So the next concept that we need to learn about is the match mode. And a match mode is just a value in your lookup function that will tell Excel how the lookup value is matched with the values in the lookup array, and I'll explain later on using an example. So when you put a 0, it means that it's an exact match, that the search for that the value that you are looking for, that the lookup value should be exactly the same in the lookup array. When you put a 1 is where you search for an exact match of the next larger value, and the data needs to be sorted in ascending order. And when you put -1 is where you are searching for an exact match or something next or smaller. And I'm going to give an example using the data that we have. So when you are looking up for 14th of January 2010 in our data set of sales date, it should be exactly 14th of January 2010. It should not be something that is close to that. So that's what it means by an exact match. But what if you have, as you want to do your grading, you are looking for the marks that a staff, that a student got, and you're looking it up in the marking data set. So if you're looking for 71, you can see there's no 71 in your data set. And you know that anything between 71 and 80 is a B. So you want to look at an approximate value. So when you look at for an approximate value in this data, it will tell you that 71 is B when you put 1, because B 70 is smaller than 71. So it will Finally, the last concept that you need to understand is the search mode. The search mode is the direction in which the function will search through the lookup array. It specifies whether Excel should search from the beginning to the end of the lookup array. So by default, that's what it does, searches from the beginning to the end, but there's a way you can make it search from the end to the beginning. And still using our example bar. So if you want to see, for example, Dan, now that you have repeat customers and you want to see when was the first time or the last time that Dan bought from us, you can search from the beginning. So when you search Dan, Excel will search from beginning to the end and it will return the first true value, that is on the 5th of January. But if you want to know the last time Dan bought from us, you have to search from the end to the beginning. So the direction that Excel uses by default is the beginning to the end, but there's a way when we have time we are going to look at that where you can be able to make Excel search from the end to the beginning. So now let's get into indexes and matching. One of the most important thing is the match mode. As I said, if you don't get the match mode correctly, it's going to mess up the result that you get. Whatever that you're going to return will be messed up. So let's do an example here. And we are going to use index and match. So let's understand what is index, what is match, and are they one and the same? So if we say equals index, and I encourage you to always read the explanation of any function that you are going to use. It says that it returns the value or reference of a cell at the intersection of a particular row and column in a given range. So for index, you give it a range, then you give it the row number and the column number. If this range consists of more than 2 columns, then you need to give it a row number and a column number. If it's just one column, unlike VLOOKUP, it can take a range of a single column, then you just need to give it a row number. So we are going to do a simple example. So if we say index, what we are looking up for, and this is the simplest, we are looking up for the amount. So I'm going to come and select the amount. Okay, so that is, if you let me make that. So the first thing that index asks is your return array. Okay, what do you want to return? So the first parameter in the index function is your return array. So think of index, then the first thing that you put in the index, the first as the array is the return array. What do you want to return? Okay. So the next question is, it is in what row number and it is in what column number? So we have just selected one column, but we can see that 107 is in row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do not have to do this, and that's why I'm going to introduce the match function. But for now, I want you to understand why the match function is important. So if I put 6, and then since we only have this one column, I can put 1 here or I can ignore. For now, so it will tell me that invoice number 107, the amount was 40,600. But you're not supposed to be putting this 6. The essence of having the match function is for it to automate for you to find the row numbers. So the match function equals match. So let's read what it does. It returns the relative position of an item in an array that matches the specific value in a specific order. So what it just does is that if you give it, if you tell it to look up 107 in the invoices, it will tell you 107 is in what row. So what are we looking up? Because we want to return 6, we want to know what position, what row is the invoice number 107. So our lookup value is the invoice. Where are we looking up this invoice number? We are looking it up in the invoices. And as I said, very important, do we want an exact match? 107, it should look for 107. If it doesn't get 107, return an error or something that is less than 107 or greater than 107. For us, currently, we want an exact match. So it tells you that 107 is in row number 6. So instead of you writing index and then you counting physically, you can replace this 6 with the match function. As you can see, this 6 and this is the same 6 that was returned by the match function. So index and match are two different functions. There's the index that gives you the return, whatever that you are looking for. And then there's the match that helps you to identify where your lookup value is placed in your data set. So instead of this 6, let's make it automatic and say match. So what are we looking up? We are looking up this invoice. Where are we looking it up? We are looking it up in the invoices column. So how do we want it? Do we want a lesser than? Do we want a greater than? Or do we want an exact? We want an exact match. So you put a 0. Then you close your match function. And if you look at this intelligence, it tells you are still in the index. And since our array is a single column, and we are going to see where we are going to use the column number for. For now, we can ignore the column number and just close the index. And it will tell us that it will return for us the same amount. So for example, if I change this 107 to, let me say this is 117, and then I have my 107 here. As you can see, it's able to select the correct amount because the match function is tracing where 107 is in this data set and is returning the correct row number. So let me redo. So for what if you are looking for invoice number 108? As you can see, we don't have 108 here. So let me use the index function again. So what are we returning? We are returning the amount. And then let's see where 108 is using the match function. What are we looking up? We are looking up 108. We are looking it up in the invoice. And then it should be exact. Oh, sorry, there's a 108 here. Let me put it as 118. So as you can see, the exact function will tell us that we don't have 108. What will the approximate function do? Let's do the same thing. So what are we matching? Invoice 108 in the invoices number. And then we say 1 for exact, for approximate. So it's returning 4,600. So be very, very careful when you are doing your matches. If you use an approximate match, it will return for you the wrong piece of information, but it's very useful, and we are going to see why when it's useful. But if you are looking for something exact, ensure that the match type that you select is the exact match type, which is a 0. Okay. So when do we use the approximate match? For grouping, and also especially if you are looking for discounts, and also if you are doing like taxations and you are doing like pay, and you want to know a person who falls in between this salary range and this salary range, they are charged a different tax amount, you use an approximate match, and I'm going to show you how. So we have the students, and we have the marks that they attained, and we have the grading table. For an approximate match, the data must be sorted in an ascending order. So this is very important if you are going to do an approximate match. Sort your lookup value or your lookup array. Sort your lookup array in an assorting order. And it should only have unique values. You should not have like 70 and then you have another 70 down here. So if you have done that, then we do index. So again, as I told you, the first thing the index value, the index function asks for is what do you want to return? This array, just think of it like, what do I want to return? I want to return the grades. So grades that are in which row? So we are going to use the match function to return the row number that is corresponding approximately to these marks. So I'm going to say match. So these marks, where am I finding those marks? I'm finding them in this table. Okay. So what do I want? Since I don't have a 1-for-1, it's not an exact match, I'm going to use 1 for an approximate match. And then I close on the row number. And then since it's a single column, I don't need to search anything else. So it tells me that 71 is in column, okay, 71, that student attained a B. So in case I autofill, as you can see, this student got 16 and 16 is less than 40. So it always gives you the lesser value. It looks up at for 16. It sees that 16 is greater than 0, but 16 is also less than 40. So it goes back and tells you that any person who gets a 16 gets an E. Yeah. So the same thing if you have discounts. You have your customers and you have your sales. So you want to fetch the discount. So this is your discount table. So any person from 0 to 47,999, they get 0% as discount. 48 to 52, they get 15 all the way. So these are the sales that you have, and you want to fetch. You want to fetch the correct discount percentages that everyone is supposed to get. So we are going to use an approximate match because, as you can see, we are looking up whatever we are looking, the value that we are, this lookup value, we are looking it up in a range. It's not in a 1-for-1, which is an exact match. So I'll put index. What do I want to return? Always remember that the first thing that index asks you is what do you want to return? I want to return the discounts. Okay. So now discounts that are in which row? So I'm going to use the match function. So I'm going to look up this sales amount, and I'm going to look for it in the from, yeah, and then it should be an approximate, so it should be 1. Then I'm going to close the row number, and I'm going to close. No, I'm going to close the match function, and I'm going to close the index function. As you can see, any person who Emily, since she bought goods worth 50,000, she falls into this range of 48 to 52, 5,999. So she gets 15%. So what Excel has done, it has come and searched from into this column. So this is our lookup array. It has looked for 50. It says is 50 greater than 0? Yes. So it continues to the next column. Is 50 greater than 48? Yes, it's greater than 48. Is 50 greater than 53? No. Since it's not greater than 53, so it gives you the smaller of that, which is 15%. So when you autofill, that's the way the approximate lookup works. So if you look, it says that it returns the position of the smallest value in a lookup array that is greater than the lookup value. So this is it, and so it's greater. So 50 is greater than 48, but it's smaller than 53. So it will return back to 48. So before we get into some a bit complicated examples, is there anyone maybe with a question or something that needs to be clarified? Joan, is there a question? You can raise your hand and then you'll be unmuted if you want to. Any person with a question?
No,
Okay.
I haven't seen a question, so I think we can proceed.
Okay. So let's get into something a bit more complicated. So as you have seen, what we are working with was just a single column. So now let's get into, can it return more than, can index and match return more than one column? So we want to find our customer Jackson, and we want to find the date and the amount. Okay. So what we said is that, as you can see, since Jackson is a repeat customer, our lookup value is not unique. So whatever that we are going to return will be the first time that Jackson bought from us. So we are looking up, we want to return this date and this amount. Okay. So index. Since now we want to return more than one column, we need to select the whole table. Okay. So previously we were selecting a single column, but now we are going to select the whole table since we want to return more than one column. So what row number is Jackson? Or we can even select, let's select Jackson, but I'm going to change later on. So we say the essence of the match function is to help you to automatically return the row number or the column number. Okay. So what row number match? What are we looking up? We want to find Jackson. So where is Jackson in our data set? Jackson is among our customers, so we select the customer. So we want an exact match. We want the check for us person who is called Jackson, not anything else. So that will return for us the row number. So the other question is, now we are moving to the column numbers. What do we want to return for the column? we want to return the date and the amount. So we can come and say match. Look for us in these headers, where is the date and where is the amount. So our lookup value, we can select both date and amount, and then we are looking up for these headers, the date and the amount in the headers, and it should be exact. So we close the match function, and then we close the index function, and that is what it returns. So the only the only trick that you need to run here is when you want to return multiple columns, you can use. Let me make this reader friendly. So the first match functions return for you the row number, returns for you the row number, and then the second match function returns for you the column numbers. And if you are doubting that, we are going to write the second match function here. Match this. Look up this in the headers, and then be exact. So you can see it returns. We want to return column number 2 and column number 3, which is actually, when you start counting, is this column number 2, which is our date, and column number 3, which is our amount. The beauty about doing this is that if you want to return a different non-adjacent column, that like you want to return the date and you want to return the region, all you need to do is to copy the header region and you paste it in your lookup values, and you can see now it's returning column number 2, which is our date, and returning column number 4, which is our region. That's why it's returning the first Jackson he bought from us on 5th of January from Eastern. Let's find somebody who has bought only once. So I'm going to find this person. So if my function is correct, it's supposed to return 12th and Western, which it has. Yeah. So if you want to return multiple column, then you need to add another match function so that it can be able to automatically select for you the column numbers. Remember, index returns for you the intersection of the row and the column. Okay. So another question I get is that does the data set and the lookup value have to be in the same worksheet? No, it doesn't have to be in the same worksheet. For example, we are going to look up for Dan 11th, but we are going to look up in another worksheet. So how do you do that? And again, we want to return the amount and the region. So we come and say index. What we want is, and this is the other thing that is different with this example is that we are going to use what is called, as we said when we are starting, that a lookup value. So far we have used a single value, but we can use a combination of values done on 11th. So you want to come, as you can see, Dan has bought so many. We can even change this to Dan. Dan has bought is a frequent customer, but we only concerned with what he bought on 11. Yeah. So let me take this step by step so that you can understand. So the first thing that you need to do is that you need to combine the customer and the date for it to be unique. So this is the only thing unique here is the customer and the date. So how do you do that? You just say equals this customer, and then you do an ampersand, and then you say date. So this is something unique. So the 4189 is the date that has been converted into a number. So don't worry about that. Yeah. So this now is a combined unique lookup value. Okay. And since your data set doesn't have a column that has the customers and the date, you can come and add here a combined customers and date, or you can combine them in your lookup value. Your lookup array can be a combined value. So you can come and say, I want to combine customers and dates. Yeah. So your lookup value, your lookup array, and then with these two now, you can be able to return anything from this table. So how do you, instead of doing this separately, how do you combine all that in a index and match function? So what we are going to do is that we are going to say index. As you have said, the first thing that it will ask you is, what do you want to return? I want to return the whole table, but specific parts of the whole table, since I want to return the amount and the region, comma. So we go back to the sheet that has your lookup value. So let me delete that and say match. What am I looking up? I'm looking up done and I'm looking up done and the date. And the question is, where am I looking up? There's no specific column that combines the customer and the date. So you have to create your own lookup array. So we are going to come here and say, we are looking it up in customer and the date. And then it should be exact. It should be exact. So now those are the row numbers. So the other question is, which columns do we want to return? This is our data set. Which columns do we want to return? We want to return the amount and the region. And this is the other trick, is that if you know the column numbers, you can hard code them. You do not have to use the match function. So this is a trick that you can use. So I know my amount and column. The amount and the region is column number 1, 2, column number 3 and 4. So I can come to my function here and use a curly brace and say I want column 3, and I put a comma, and I want column 4, and then close the curly brace, and then close the index, and it will return for me the amount and the region. So what I've done, I know I have packed too much on that example, First of all, we are looking up in a different, your data set doesn't have to be in the same worksheet. So it can be in a different worksheet. You can have like 20, 30 worksheets, and you can look up from any of the worksheets as long as you know these concepts, which I said, what is your lookup value, where are you looking it up, what are you returning, what match mode are you using, and then what your search mode. Okay, so we are using a combined value, which is done. So this is our combined value. It doesn't have to be a single value, it can be a combined value. But when you use a combined value, remember that you are going to look it up. Your lookup array has to be combined also. Yeah. So the beauty about index and match and the other lookup function is that your data can even be in a different workbook. So this is the workbook that we are using. Is called the index and match index function. I have another workbook here called January sales. Yeah. So as long as the two books are open, you can come and say lookup. So what do I want to return? I'm assuming if you have like a payroll and you have your employee numbers here and you have a payroll workbook somewhere else, you can use your employee number here. Then you go to your the payroll workbook and say, I want to return the amounts. Okay. So you go back to your employee workbook. So you say match. What do I want to match? I want to find done. Where, remember, where you the workbook that you are retrieving the amount from is where your return array. Okay, let me use the terms that we have, the lookup concept. Your return array and your lookup array, they need to be in the same workbook, worksheet, data set that you are using. So I go back to my January sales and say I'm looking for done here, and then it should be exact. So did I think I selected, oh, it's because I formatted this as a date. I think I can format that as a number. So 53,800, if you open this workbook, is what Dan bought from us. So the trick here is, what if this workbook is closed? What will happen? So if I come and I close this workbook, so my data is still there because it's in a cache somehow. So if in case I close this workbook and open it again, I want you to observe this. So in case you have done, you are looking up and now you have saved it, I'll even save it. So in case I close it and I open it again, you see. So in case you look up your information in a different workbook, ensure that when you are done with your formula, you save it as a value. Otherwise, if your other workbook is not open, it will always return a reference error. Yeah. So if possible, what I usually tell people and what I usually encourage is that try to have your lookup data sets in the same workbook. If you're going to use a different workbook, ensure that they are both open, or you copy and paste that value as a file, or that formula as a value. Okay, so this is something that tricks people a lot. I think we have done the combo lookup array. It's the same thing. Try to make this smaller. We have a few minutes and I want to tackle a two-way lookup. So we have the product, we have the customers, and we have the months. So if you want to check for Ruby and shares, you do the same thing. You have to create a combined lookup value for you to get the amount. But the most important part that I want us to look at is the two-way lookup. So you want to find Ruby shares, Ruby, and the month of March. Okay. So you come and say index. What do you want to return? Since you are looking up in both rows, and columns, it's good to select the whole table. So what row do you want to return? We use the match function. I want shares and Ruby. Okay. So where am I looking up for shares and Ruby? As you can see, your data set doesn't have a column for shares and Ruby. So what we say is that we need to create a lookup array that combines both the product and the customer. So you select product and customer. What's our match type? By now we should know that is exact. So that will return the row number that has shares and Ruby. So which column do you want? You want a column that contains the month March. So the same thing we use, we make it more readable. So we say March. What are we looking up? We are looking up the month March. Where are we looking it up? We are looking it up in the headers. And then it should be exact. So we close the match. So this one, if you look at our IntelliSense here, it's telling us that that's a column number. And then you close the index function. So Ruby bought shares for the month of March. The amount that she spent was 84,000, as you can see. Yeah. So that's a two-way lookup. You can combine your lookup array, and you can also use that in the columns. Okay. So now, what if you want share for Rubies, but you want for both the month of January and March, and it's the same thing that we used here. When you want to return multiple columns, remember all you need to do is to select both of them. And I'm going to show you, let me do this. I want to know what column is the month of January and what column is the month of March. So all I need to do is to say March. I highlight both of them. And then where am I looking up January and March? I'm looking up in the headers. And I want them to be exact. So this returns 3 and 5, which actually, let's see whether it's correct. January is column number 3 and March is column number 5. So now that I have these two columns, I can come and now write my index function. So index, what do I want to return? I want to return the whole table. Remember, these are columns. So what row do I want to return? I use another match function. I want to look up shares and Ruby. Where do I want to look them up? I want to look them up in a made up lookup array. So it's product and customer. And it should be exact. So again, let me make this more human friendly to understand. Sorry. I need to close the index first. So what is our row number? The row number is being returned by this match function, which is looking up this combined lookup value in a combined lookup array. And then what column numbers? The column numbers are being returned by this match function, which is looking up these two. You can see the difference. We are not combining January and March because we want January or March, not shares and Ruby here. And this is the difference. If you want to do an all, you have to select both. Don't combine them like the way we are combining shares and Ruby. You want January or March, where we have January that is on a specific column and March on a specific column, and then we want them to be exact. And that's it. So it will return for you 32 and 84, which is true. But if you want the total amount is simple, then all you need to do is to come and you sum. Okay. So what if you wanted January and February? The beauty about using the match function is that you do not have to think and start counting the columns. All I need to do is to write Feb. Excel is not case sensitive, so as long as those three letters follow the same, it will still get you the correct amount, which is 32. 32 is 64, 200. Okay. So use when you are doing the rows and the column, use a combined match function for each. Okay. It's already 5. So I have a lot to cover. So let me do a more complicated lookup function. So this is a 6-way lookup function. And here, what we need is we need to find chairs and Ruby, all laptops and look. Okay. So what did Ruby buy in shares and what did Luke buy in laptops for the month of January and the month of March? That's too much for any one person, but we are going to break it down. So let me delete all this. So the first thing that we need to know is in which rows is Ruby buying the shares. We have to make it a bit smaller. What rows do we have Ruby and shares, and which rows do we have laptops and look? So the first thing is we need to create a combined lookup value. So this is the last example. I know time is spent. So how do we create a combined lookup value? We just select shares and laptops and items and then the buyers. So that's what it will return. And now since this is a combined lookup value, so let's use match. So the question is, where are we looking it up? Remember, our data set doesn't have a combined items and buyer, so we are going to combine them. So we are going to say the items and the buyer, and then we need them to be exact. So as you can see, Charles and Ruby, so that you can confirm for yourself. Row number 4 is where we have Charles and Ruby. And row number 10 is where we have Luke and the laptops. So the next thing that we need to do is to find out is which columns do we have for the month of January and March. So we come and say March. We want to find January and March. Sorry. Where do we want to find January and March? We want to find that in the headers. And we want it to be exact, which is true. January and March is in column number 3 and column number 5. So with this information, you can easily use the index function to return 32, 84, 40, and 77. But let's see. Sorry. So equals index. What do we want to return? We want to return the data that is in this data set. Which rows? We know it's row number 4 and number 10. Which columns? Is column 3 and column 5. So how come it's not returning 32, 84, 40, and 77? And this is the trick. This is the trick I learned from somebody called Aditya in LinkedIn. If you are not on LinkedIn and you are not engaging, I think you are missing a lot. This is because your data is in a one dimension. So what you need to do for it to return these 4 values, you need to make it a 2-dimension data, a 2-dimension function, and you do that by transposing the columns. So if I come here to the columns and I say transpose, now it's returning the correct data, which is 32 and 84 and 40 and 77. So this trick of transposing your column values will make your function 2-dimension instead of the single dimension that it was. Now, if you want to know the total again, you just sum. Okay. So if you want to write the full function, instead of, I was doing this so that I can show you the breakdown, but I can write the full function which you are supposed to do. So let me do this as the last example. Time is much gone. So, we can say index. What do we want to return? We want to return data that is in this table. Remember, that's the first parameter in index is your return array. So the next parameter it asks you is what row numbers do we want? So the row numbers that we want is being returned by the match function. And we want where the shares and the laptops and Ruby and Look are, since this is a combined lookup value, we need to create a combined lookup array, which is product and customer. And then it should be exact. So that's the first match function that is returning the row numbers. So which columns? And this is the most important thing. If when you are writing your function in Excel, always try to follow the IntelliSense. It will tell you what is being requested. So we want to know the columns, and we are going to say March. We want to know January and February, the columns that have January and February. Where are we looking up January and February? We are looking up in the headers, and it should be exact. But again, we know this is a one-dimension function. So to make it multiple dimension, you just need to transpose the second match. Just transpose the second match. And that's it. Yeah, 32, 84, 40. You can do, if you have the filter function, you can do, there are better functions than index and match, but if you don't have Office 365, this is your best option. So now from there, all you need to do is to come and use sum. And that's it. Yeah. So that's how you make your function two-dimension. Our time is up. We could have done, I don't know whether continue or to stop. Let me show you the last one. Please allow me to like 5 minutes. The beauty about index and match is that you can do a horizontal lookup with it. If you look up, you have to do a lot of gymnastics for you to do a horizontal lookup. And what do I mean by a horizontal lookup is that you have this data set, you have the suppliers, and they have quoted differently for different items. So you ask for 3 quotes, and Luna quoted 70,000, Ruby quoted 50,000, and Gupta quoted 45,000. So you, as the procurement person, you want to know who has the lowest quote. And this can be 1,000 lows, it can be 1,000, it doesn't matter. So what you need to do is that you need to look up these, return the supplier with the least quote. So you need to look up. So previously we are looking up horizontally, but now we need to look up. We are looking up vertically, but now we need to look up horizontally. So how do you do that? It's so simple with index and match is that we want to return. Now, as you can see, we can say we want to return these representative customers. I've named them representatives. So what row number? Remember, our data now is in columns, so we don't need a row number. What we need is a column number. Okay, because now we have selected 3 columns, but index wants to know what column number do we want to return. So you can skip the row and you go to the column. So if you look at this, you can see Gumta is in column number 3. But again, you don't need, it will not always be column number 3, so it will be changing. So you need to use a match function. So you come and say match. So what are you looking up? We are looking up the minimum per every item, the minimum of the quotes. So that is your lookup value. So we say we want the minimum of these quotes. Okay. Where are we looking up this? The minimum of the quotes is in the quotes themselves. And then we want it to be an exact value. Okay. And then you just close your index and it will tell you Gumta is the one who has the least quote in the chairs. Ruby is the one who has the least quote in the laptops. And if you don't believe me, if I change this to 15,000, what I'm expecting is that Runa should be the one who has the least quote in the laptops. And it's true. The beauty about using the match function is that it is dynamic and it will always return for you the correct column with the least amount that was quoted, because you have said the lookup value is the minimum amount in the total quotations. So we can continue like this until 7 or 8. There's a lot to learn about the index function. So I'll welcome a question if there's a question, Joanne.